Welcome to Food, Wine, and Whiskey, a podcast about having fun conversations on tasty dishes, vinos, and spirits from around the world. Rob is your host. He is an avid home chef, WSET Level 2 award in wine, and a whiskey drinker and collector. Time to set the table. Here's Rob.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We appreciate so much for you guys stopping in. If you're a first-time listener to the program, thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind giving us a like on wherever you listen to us, and also following the podcast, it's a huge help. In addition to that, a review goes a long way anywhere you listen. So Spotify, Google, take that back. No more Google. Now YouTube Music, Apple, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, any of the places you listen to the podcast, you can find us, and a review helps the show a bunch. We really appreciate it. It helps us get up in the algorithm where other folks can find us. All right, jumping into today's topic. This was suggested to me by my wife, and today on the episode, it's just me, but we're going to have a conversation about kind of our approach. I say ours, mine and my wife Sandra's, our approach to wine lists, because we know that these can be intimidating. These can be kind of sometimes overwhelming, depending on the size of the wine list. Sometimes intimidating and overwhelming depending on the price of bottles on a wine list, and knowing, what's appropriate, what should I do, what shouldn't I do, what kind of questions can I ask, or do they have somebody who's knowledgeable in wine, and how do I use that person? So we're going to go through a lot of these things today, most of it coming from our perspective, what we do, how we approach wine lists at restaurants. And then, another idea from my wife, which I think is a great one, is we're going to go and see if we can, one of the restaurants that we enjoy here, there's several, see if we can reach out to one of the wine directors and maybe have them on for an episode. Could be fun to talk to them and get their approach to wine, their approach to the different levels of wine drinkers who come into the restaurant, and how they kind of curate that list to kind of have something for everybody, because they really try to do that. From, I would say everything on a wine list at good restaurants that really have put some thought into it, everything on that wine list is a quality wine. And I think too many times there's this perception of the average drinker that, the more it costs, the better it is. Not always the case. There's definitely a floor, I think, that you have to be a certain level where you're starting to get, primarily good fruit. That's the base for good wine, right, is good fruit. There's a floor for that, but it doesn't have to be the most expensive bottle on the list to be a really good, enjoyable wine that's going to enhance the meal that you're having at that restaurant. And I would say that's the first thing we want to talk about. The wine list should complement the type of foods being served at the restaurant, right? If you're going to, I love Italy. I'm just going to go there for the example. If you're going to an Italian restaurant that has dishes from multiple regions throughout Italy, from the north to the central to the south, they have different styles of wines in the north, in the central, and in the south that would complement those dishes. So you want to see wines represented from those regions, because there's this saying in wine, what grows together goes together. And for the most part, that's very, very true. There's always exceptions. Sometimes we think wine pairing is, you really have to zone in on it, and it's really minute and very, there's a lot of, finette kind of things that go with it. It's not true. It's more of a general thing, style of food, type of wine. But when you talk about a specific cuisine, Italy, again, being the example, what grows together goes together, because they're making their wines in those regions, in those parts of Italy, to complement their food. So very, very important that they have that. Now, there's other wines from around the world that can still go with those types of foods, and that's where you get into the profile type. Let's just use, we always think of steak and a big Napa cab, right? Well, yeah, it goes well together. Steak and Napa cab is always that pairing you hear when you say, here in the States, a big old ribeye, people go Napa cab. But, a Bordeaux works very well, which is still the same same grapes, similar grapes. A Syrah could go very well. A Barolo, a Nebbiolo wine would go very well. So there's always, you want to have choices because wine is very personal, right? What you like with a particular type of food could be slightly different than what other people enjoy with that type of food. And steak being the example. Some people might love a cab, whether it be from Napa, whether it be from Australia, whether it be from Bordeaux, where I would tell you I prefer a Barolo with a steak, from Piemonte, which is the Nebbiolo grape. So it can be slightly different for everybody. And that's what makes the world go around. We all like different things. Our bodies are built different ways as far as preferences and taste profiles that we really enjoy. And so there's no wrong answer in wine. So having options is a good thing. But we should still have something that, is thought to go with that type of food. So I think that's very, very important, that the wine list should complement the type of foods being served. And on that note, I think a lot of times folks, I'm just going to say from my perspective, people that I talk to that say they're wine drinkers, if I ask them if they love, other parts of the world, they'll go, nah, not really. I'm kind of, Napa's where I live. I love Napa Cab and Napa Sauvignon Blanc and I even like some Chardonnay and whatever, but I got to stay in that region. And to me, if I ask that same person, what about food? Do you only like food from America then? You don't like anything from Italy or France or Asian cuisine, or, you only like, Southern soul food, or Midwest, steak and corn and potatoes, or, that's all you like? And they'll go, no, hold on. I love exploring the world of food. But when it comes to my wine, I want to stay here in Napa. That's where I think sometimes people miss out. I always say keep exploring, that the world of wine and the world of food, they're interlocked, they're connected. As you travel the globe for food, and you should, and we absolutely love doing that, you should also be exploring the world of wine that goes with those types of foods. So you'll hear me say it a lot, keep exploring. And those two things together makes the journey really cool and really fun. And, to me, you have to have an open mind with wine. You can't compare things. When we talk about a grape, we keep saying that Napa Cab, a Cabernet from Napa is going to be different than a cab-heavy wine from Bordeaux. It just is. The style, the soils, the place is different. The winemaker's approach is going to be different. So try to get away, if you're doing this. If you're not, good for you. But if you are, try to get away from going, I like Napa Cab, so I'm going to try a Bordeaux. But the benchmark for me is it needs to taste like Napa Cab. No, you want it to taste totally different. One of the most beautiful things in wine is seeing how a wine can be different, same grape, but can be different from a different place, from a different style, from a different climate, warm climate to cold climate. So that's part of the exploring. So when you look at a wine list and you're looking at, wines, and you like certain grapes, find that grape from a different region. That's one of the things I would tell you to do, is explore and find grapes that you enjoy, but find them at a different region or different country and see how they can be made there. That's always fun. One of the other things I would tell you is that a lot of times folks that aren't wine nerds, if you will, don't want to interact too much with a somm or the person who is a knowledgeable wine person on the wine list that's at that restaurant. And I think that's something that is a mistake. You need to absolutely lean on and depend on that person to help guide you through the wine list. One, they know it very well. They may have been the person who put it together, or at least had some influence on helping put it together. But at a minimum, they probably know it very well. And two, they're going to be able to talk to you, understand what you like in a wine, maybe not what you've been drinking. We don't want to give you the same thing, or if they're good at their job, they're not going to try to give you the same thing you've been drinking unless you're just, if you're just going to drink what you drink, then you don't need that person. If you know all you like is Napa Sauvignon Blanc and you find one on the list and that's all you're going to order, well then fine. You're probably missing out a lot. But they're going to help you find something that you're going to enjoy with the food you're ordering. And a lot of times folks will go, yeah, but I feel like they're going to push me to, spending money that I just can't afford or don't want to spend. I'm not a nerd enough about wine to justify spending that much money. Another, I think, misperception of these people. They don't want to do that. One of the things a good person, som or knowledgeable wine person in the restaurant was going to do, one of the first questions they're going to ask you is, what's your budget? Because that right away is going to get them into where they should be on their wine list to help find something that you're going to enjoy. So use those folks. Definitely use those folks. And one thing I'll say about budget, don't feel like there's this pressure that you have to spend money and get this really nice bottle of wine. You don't have to. If it's on their wine list at nice restaurants that have great food, that have put some thought in putting this wine list together, if it's on their wine list, 98% of the time, it's a quality wine. I won't say every time, but most of the time, it's hard to miss on those. So if it's on their wine list, it's worth ordering if it's something that you think you're going to enjoy and it's going to go with the food that you're going to have that night. So definitely use those, folks. The other thing I would say is, is it okay to look for value? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things when we buy wine at home, right? I always talk about, if you've listened to the show, I want wines that punch up. I want wines that if I go to the wine shop and it costs me $30 for that bottle of wine and we drank it and we go, hey, we'd be happy to pay $50 for that. That's a wine that punches up. So looking for wines, doing a little research is perfectly fine. Trying to find value on their wine list, because you can find that sometimes, right? You can find wines that you go, hey, look, I know retail on this wine is $35, and man, they've got it for $50. That's a great deal. Where it could be another $35 wine, they've got it for $80, and you go, yeah, I like that one, but I like this one too. Well, the value is in the one that's $35 to $50, not $35 to $80, or you get my point. So, looking for value, absolutely, you should look for value. Now, you might be saying, well, gosh, Rob, I don't want to spend a lot of time at the restaurant just looking at a wine list. And you shouldn't. You can take some time. But what my recommendation would be is what my wife will tell you. I do this. When we find a restaurant that we haven't been to, we're going to go because the menu just looks fantastic and we want to try these foods. The next thing I'll do, usually you're surfing on the web, right? To do that, you're looking on the internet, you find a restaurant, you go, hey, look at this place. This looks cool. The menu looks awesome. Well, the next step is to go, if the menu looks awesome, let's look at the wine list and see what they have to offer. So do that. If we're going to make a reservation on a Friday or a Saturday, then we're going to start looking at I am, my wife will tell you this usually falls to me. I'm going to start looking at that wine list on Wednesday and Thursday and start exploring and doing some research and seeing, what do I think I'll like? What's the menu items that are intriguing me that I go, ooh, that sounds good. I want to try that. If I have that, what are some wines that I think may go with that? What are in my price range? So you can do that kind of research up front before going to the restaurant. There's no reason you shouldn't do that. It's just going to make the experience, one, easier, right? More fluid as you get in. It's just going to roll a little easier, and you're going to be more educated on what you're potentially wanting to order when you get there. Now, I will warn you, it happens quite a bit that a lot of restaurants will change their wine list in the restaurant, but they haven't updated their wine list on their website. So just be aware. I'm telling you this, for the most part, you're going to find most of the things on there, but there is going to be some wines that won't be available at the restaurant that maybe you were considering. The flip of that is there may be some wines that weren't on the website that are now available that you go, oh, okay, well, that sounds cool. And because you've just looked at the menu of food and the wine list together, you already have a profile of a wine that you might be looking at. And so having wines thrown at you that, look, sorry, these aren't available now, but this one is, still is going to fall into what you've been thinking about, if that makes sense. I know I'm kind of babbling a little bit there, but I think you get what I'm saying. So doing a little bit of homework, a little bit of research can go a long way in doing that as well. The other thing I would say is, what size group are you going with? Is it just you and your wife, you and your husband? Or are you going with one other couple? Are you going with, let's just say 2 other couples? And I'll cap it out there. If we're going to do a dinner night with some friends, 6 is usually the largest that we'll go out with so that we can all enjoy each other's company. Any more than that, it gets difficult to kind of enjoy each other's company. 4 is always awesome, 6 being the max. Let's just start there. If you're going to have a group of people, obviously you need to be considerate, especially if they're wine people, right? They like to drink wine. And you need to be considerate of what their budget is, what they like to drink. Have those conversations, talk about it a little bit, and then make your decisions. All of you kind of looking at the wine list of what's available, as well as we've been saying, looking at the menu. Now, I will tell you that my wife and I agree that we have this approach. If we're going with a group of people, you're probably going to order more than 1 bottle of wine. When we go out to a dinner like this, we're not looking for this to be something where, we're in and out in 45 minutes. These are nights that we want to be an experience. We want to, if you will, have some memories from, right? That we enjoyed that night with those couples, drinking that wine, eating that food. So don't, make sure that when you pick restaurants where you're going to have nights like this, that you don't feel rushed in the restaurant. Boy, that's one thing my wife and I hate more than anything else, is to go out to a nice restaurant and want to take our time and enjoy a meal with some wine and feel like you're being kind of hurried to order, eat, and pay, and then get out of the restaurant. So make sure you go to a place that's going to accommodate you with having an experience at their place. Most of these finer type of restaurants do a really good job of that. So with your group, I was going to say I like a white and a red when we order, because a lot of times the appetizer menu, most of the time, will lend itself to lighter kind of starters, whether it's a salad or whether could even be something fried like calamari or something like that, where you want some higher acid, more crisp, more clean. Whites tend to lean more towards the appetizer menus for me. And then the entrees, a lot of times will go more red. Not always, because, you can have whites with some of the main courses as well, depending on the type of restaurant you're at. So when we have another couple with us or 2, we'll all discuss the menus, the appetizers, the mains, and we'll start talking about a white maybe first and then go to a red with our entrees and things like that, which I think is a great approach. And that's the way you should do it. Now, there are instances where 2 whites work, 2 reds work, just based on the menu and what you guys are thinking of ordering. That's perfectly fine too. But what if it's just you and your wife? And you just heard me say, well, I really enjoy a white and then a red. A lot of restaurants, these types of restaurants that I'm describing, have great BTG programs, by the glass. And these are great options. And they put, this is my opinion, again, if we have a wine director come on, we'll be able to ask some questions and get some answers. But my thought is, being kind of a wine nerd, enjoying exploring the world of wine, they have a great by the glass, a BTG program, because they know folks like us want to come in. And if you buy a bottle, you're kind of, that's what you got to drink with whatever you order. But if you have a great by the glass program, now me and my wife can do the same thing we were talking about with the group. I can order a glass of white for my appetizer, right, and getting started. And then I can order a glass of red to go with my main entree that we're going to have. The other thing that's really cool is I like to buy the glass program with my wife and I. We'll do this a lot where she'll order this white, I'll order a different white, and as we're having our appetizers, we're just going to share, right? Her and I, we don't mind, mixing cooties. We're okay. We're married. So sharing, now I get to try the food with two different white wines, which is always fun. And then when we get to our entrees, you can do the same thing, right? We can go reds. So let's say we're going to go reds now. We can each order our entree. And if we're in a restaurant that's a style of food, there's going to be multiple choices of red wines that would go with the foods that we're probably going to order. So again, if she does the same thing and she does a red and I do a different red, and now we just kind of share back and forth, now I've got to try 4 different wines with the meal that we enjoyed that night. And when you hear me say keep exploring, I mean, that's exactly what that is. You're getting an opportunity at a restaurant to explore the wine list with the food that they have and just see what you enjoy. And it makes it a lot of fun. The other thing I like about the buy the glass option is maybe it's the appetizer menu is a little bit more robust. It's a little heavier. It's calling for a red wine. Well, now you can do 2 different red wines each, or it could be calling for white wines, and you do 2 white wines that you're going to have, with the appetizer and with your entree, your wife with the appetizer and with the entree. So now you, again, explored 4 wines going through the different meals that you're having that night, the different dishes that you're enjoying. So these are some of our approaches to a wine list, but I just wanted to go through with you all because it is a topic. It's something that my wife, when she looks at a wine list, and she doesn't that's not fair. She does. She looks at it. She knows. I need to give her more credit. She really does. But she pushes it to me to make the final decision. She'll give me some suggestions of what looks good to her. But then she'll push it to me to make that final decision. So you'll hear me say it a lot if you've listened to a lot of our podcasts. And the name of the show, obviously, Food, Wine, and Whiskey. We love whiskey. But whiskey and food, in my opinion, there was an episode come out a couple months ago, does not go together. I see these pairings all the time with whiskey and food, and to me, I just kind of shake my head. But wine absolutely is a beverage made to go with food. It's designed, for the most part, to go with food. So anytime you can explore different expressions of wine with foods that you're enjoying, man, you absolutely want to do that. So the Buy the Glass program can be great. But again, we'll go to a brunch and, having a brunch, we may just go, hey, we're in the mood. And this brings up a good point going back to talking about a group of people, and you're trying to figure out what wine that you want to order with that group of people. A great option, I was just getting ready to say it for brunch, with a group is also champagne, bubbles. Who doesn't love bubbles? And it doesn't have to necessarily be champagne. We understand that champagne can get a little more expensive. There's some great value on wine lists when you start looking at a cava from Spain, a Cremant from one of the regions. Alsace Cremants are one of our favorites from France, even a French Corta or something from Italy. Bubbles are what they put you in the mood, right? They're fun to drink, and they're very, very versatile. They're very food friendly. I think too many times people think of champagne on their own to drink and don't really think about them as a pairing with food. Champagnes are great with food. I keep saying champagnes. Sparkling wines are great with food and should absolutely be considered, especially in a group when you're getting that first bottle that you're trying to put out as you guys are going through the menus and things like that. But also great with just you and your wife if you want a bottle. Just a bottle that's going to go with everything that might be on the menu. When you hear me talk about starters, I might go white. And then with the entree, I may go red. a lot of times, hey, here it is, folks. Steak and champagne can be a pairing. It really can be. So champagne can be that versatile wine. Most wines are pretty versatile. You're looking for good acidity for the most part. Is really good with food. And champagne has great acidity. Isn't always thought to be a good wine to pair with food. Like I said a minute ago, they always think it's more of a celebratory pour or something like that. But it absolutely is a delicious wine to have with food, and goes with some, if you're having something salty, goes really, really well with that. Something buttery goes really, really well with that. So champagne needs to be an option. I probably should have mentioned that earlier in the podcast, but hey, I'm getting it in there now. Champagne, bubbles, sparkling, wherever you like it from, whatever's on the menu that kind of strikes your interest. It should be a consideration for wine that night, for sure, especially in a group. Getting back to that. Don't overthink pairing food with wine. It doesn't have to be perfect. And there's nothing wrong with, you might be hearing this and thinking that you have to pair the food with wine. I'm not even telling you that. I do believe that food and wine, the right wine with types of food, goes better together. But for the most part, drink what you like. It doesn't matter. I think it's not going to be a horrible experience unless you're, having a spicy dish with a high alcoholic wine. That's not going to be good. But, that's why I say have some general kind of rules that you're applying, when you're having your dishes, and then pick whatever wine you like that meet those kind of general guidelines, and you're going to be perfectly fine. The biggest thing we always say on this show is drink what you like. No judgment here. The point of this is just to try to help you kind of navigate and find something that you're going to enjoy, and doing it at a price point and without the intimidation, without the feeling like you're going to make a bad decision or you don't know what you're doing. Because I think a lot of us feel that way. I know I did for the longest time. And so if this helps you in any way, I'm glad for that. I would say if you're a wine drinker and when you're going to restaurants, you should be ordering wine with your meal. If you enjoy wine and at home you like having wine with food, you should feel comfortable enough to get some wine with your meal at a restaurant, whether that's you having your own knowledge to make some decisions or using the person on staff, the somm, the person who knows the wine, to help you navigate their list to enjoy some wines. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. I hope you got a little bit of help from this. If you're having some struggle, if you're listening to this, clicking on this to try to help navigate the wine list, because I really enjoy talking about food and wine, and I know that going out to a restaurant can be a little bit intimidating when you're trying to make those wine decisions. So, thanks so much for joining on this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey. And until our next episode, enjoy your next pour.